Is something very shady going on at Fanatec? Is there something we should be worried about as Fanatec customers? Well, we're going to find out in this video because there's been an extraordinary 48 million euro offer from Thomas Jackermeier, who is the fired CEO, the ex-CEO, but the current majority shareholder, to essentially take control of Fanatec's future. And he's presented this in a way where he wants to fire, or he wants the current management of Fanatec to be fired and for them to take this package and not sell the company to hedge funds. Now, by the way, I'm a Fanatec customer. I'm not a Fanatec affiliate. I don't make money from selling Fanatec products. I'm not a Fanatec shareholder. I'm here as a independent journalist, basically following this story, and we're going to scrutinize this package because we knew it was coming. We saw a lot of Fanatec shareholders, including YouTubers, but sort of other people as well, really promoting this package as coming, and this everyone needs to stand behind it and support it. This is going to be the savior of Fanatec. Fanatec's not really in trouble. This is going to be the way forward. I find that difficult to believe. It seems to be that the shareholders don't want to lose their money, basically, because if the new management go with the Starrett bankruptcy laws, the shareholders will lose out and the hedge funds will gain. Whereas if Thomas Jackermeier's group wins here, then the shareholders will win, the shareholders will make a load of money, and the hedge funds will miss out. So basically, some groups are going to make a lot of money here, and it ain't going to be you or me, the Fanatec customers. So I want to work out what's best for us. Let's go through and have a look here. This extraordinary press release from Thomas Jackermeier. So 6th of May, a group of investors formed by the founder, major shareholder, and former CEO of Fanatec, Thomas Jackermeier, has significantly increased its financing offer to the company of 48 million. So I have a few questions. Firstly, why did they not come with the 48 million a few days ago when they first presented this sort of offer? And secondly, why did they not have this 48 million a few months ago when Fanatec was skirting with bankruptcy laws or becoming in the realm where bankruptcy laws like Starrett could be used? I don't understand why this money is coming now but wasn't there before. Seems a bit unusual for me because now Thomas Jackermeier is sort of knocking on the door from the outside, whereas previously he was the CEO, so presumably he could have taken this money, repaid the banks, and so it seems a bit unusual to me. That hasn't been explained why there's suddenly so much. The Jackermeier crew is awash with funds when Fanatec was really struggling before. But there we go. According to an open letter from the group to the lending banks and the supervisory board, so the lending banks, as I've been saying all along, seem to really control what's going on in Fanatec, and I've been saying that since day one here. The group is demanding that the CEO and CFO of Fanatec are to be removed from office and the two members of the supervisory board are to resign. Huge. So both the CEO and the CFO. So you have the ex-CEO Thomas Jackermeier saying that his replacement needs to resign. I mean, Fanatec is in real difficulty here. Like, this is very dramatic. Even for corporate shenanigans like this, I'm telling you, this is really, like, not normal now. We are off the cliff. We're off the other side. Because, you know, you have to... Basically, if anyone who has a dog in this fight has to choose a side now. Either you're a shareholder, you kind of have to go with Jackermeier, or if you're, you know, not a shareholder, they want you to go with the hedge funds. Where they want customers to go, I don't know. I just want to receive my products on time, and then for them to work and to have good customer service. Thank you very much. And the market should take care of the pricing. But none of this is addressed towards customers. And anyone who's pretending that this is all about customers, I think, is not being entirely truthful. It's really about either shareholders are going to make a lot of money because the share price will go up potentially, or the hedge funds will make a lot of money because they're going to buy it cheap and sell it high. So now we start with the open letter. So this is addressed really to the banks because, as I've said, the banks call the shots. And the supervisory board. With this open letter, we want to remain true to our line and ensure transparency in the financial restructuring of Fanatec. So Fanatec, whichever way you look at it, is going to go into restructuring. So that's not good for us customers. We've got Fanatec equipment that we've paid for, I've paid for. We want to know it's going to be supported. Restructuring puts that in doubt. There's no two ways around it. As we already did with the press release of April 25th. So on April 25th, the Jackermeier crew said they had 25 million euros. Now, sort of seemingly magically, they found another 27 million. So 28 million. We are concerned about the behaviour of the management of Endor AG, aka Fanatec, which lacks transparency towards the market as well as towards partners and employees. Again, customers not mentioned. You or me, we're not mentioned here. So, I mean, I'm coming at this more from the customer side. I'm not coming at it from investor side. But anyway, it's important that employees are there because that's a very important component. The Jackermeier Investor Group has submitted a proposal to the board of directors with the following key points: binding offers, commitment letters for the subscription of a capital increase at the subscription price of €1 and the issue of basically 7.7 million shares. So the share price right now is about €1. It's completely cratered though from where it was at the high points. So they want to issue shares basically, do a capital increase. So that will dilute the existing shareholders. So you're an existing shareholder, you are going to lose out. But that's the risk you take. None of these videos are financial advice for very good reason, which is that financial advice is needed to make decisions about subscribing to shares and everything. And this is not the right forum for that. So anyone who's telling you to subscribe to shares and it's not proper financial advice, I would be very skeptical of what their motives are. I really have to be honest about that, because you can lose everything. Like, there are lots of fun and games that can happen with shareholding, as we're seeing now. Exercise of owned and assigned subscription rights in the amount of 5 million shares. That might be Thomas Jackermeier's right to get more shares, to own and to exercise subscription rights. Obligation to subscribe to unexercised subscription rights in the amount of €6 million. Similar point there. Then we go into loans. So we've got debt financing. So previously that was equity, now debt financing. Loans with convertible loans totaling €9 million and secured loans without conversion option totaling 11 million. So you've got 20 million euros in loans. But it sounds like Fanatec is just sort of getting addicted to debt financing. Like, that seemed to be the noose around their neck, was that they'd invested too much in capital, taken on too much debt to finance that. The sales hadn't been good enough to meet the repayments. And now the answer is to take on more debt. Okay, I'm just starting to feel like maybe Fanatec is really, really in a bad position. Like, whoever's going to take it on, whoever's going to make their money, the hedge funds or the shareholders, I'm starting to feel like maybe the business just expanded too much and actually the sales weren't there to support it. I don't know. So that brings 27 million euros. And then they've got some non-binding offers, which is just put down as 17 million. Okay, like no details about it. I guess it's non-binding because they haven't. It says here all offers contain a confidentiality clause. I guess a non-binding one. I mean, non-binding is non-binding, so it's a bit weird to just add that in and say, "Oh, I've got 17 million." I mean, I could say I've got 17 million for this YouTube channel, and I'm gonna no longer make it in this like shoddy environment. But so that's a bit weird. But then we total it to 48 million euros, so almost 50 million euros. Apparently, Thomas Jackermeier's firepower he's bringing. I'm very skeptical of anyone who just reads that and is like, yeah, Thomas Jackermeier's just invested 50 million euros. Like, that is such a simplification. That is clearly not how it's working. So again, possible vested interests there. So then they do a comparison against the previous proposal, and they say they have a new and very financially strong German investor join the group. Again, that's very light. I feel like I could say, oh, I've got a mate who's going to invest in my YouTube channel and it's going to be like amazing. And okay. Who submitted the binding offer for the secured loan in the amount of 5 million euros, but they can't show it because of confidentiality. So, okay. We'll take their word for it there. Then they complain about the data room. The data room, as I've explained before, is a place where documents are stored and held and viewable for people who want to buy Fanatec, because Fanatec is up for sale. And they're not happy about in terms of some of the disclosures there. Now, this is what they have come to, the Jackermeier group. By the way, I really hope you find this interesting. If you find this interesting, please make sure you subscribe, like the video, share the video if you want, because this is just presenting it impartially. So whichever side people are coming from, they should find the information here that either supports what they're trying to say or gives them some stuff to think about. So, interesting here, the first bullet point they say is a capital requirement of 25 million euros cannot be verified. So even though we saw the board come out with a statement saying, yeah, we need 25 million, which seemed to be a response to Thomas Jackermeier's crew saying, we're going to give 25 million. Now Thomas Jackermeier's crew are like, oh, hang on, we're not sure actually 25 million is needed. seems to be the inference that Thomas Jackermeier's crew think that the board aren't laying out everything clearly when it comes to the financials. That seems to be the inference there. 2 liquidity plans, internal company plan and an investor bank plan. So I think they're saying that they've got an investor bank one is the hedge fund one, and then the internal one is the Jackermeier one because he's already a shareholder, I believe, if I'm reading that correctly. Starrug as well. Costs have been incorporated, but the Jackermeier crew don't think Starrug is necessary. Basically, if the Jackermeier package is accepted, Thomas Koch, who is the CFO. Thomas Koch. This is a different Koch. This is Thomas Koch from the recruitment agency. So he's going after a recruiter. It's not Matthias Koch. Sorry. Apologies. This is Thomas Koch. So he's going after a recruiter, which is interesting because he's saying Thomas Koch was responsible for Thomas Jackermeier's departure. Sorry, it's also not helpfully worded. Thomas Jackermeier is saying that this recruiter, Thomas Koch, and also Matthias Koch were both responsible for getting rid of Jackermeier. So there's a lot of Thomases and Koches involved there. So it is a little bit confusing, but that's interesting. Quite an allegation, I have to say. So with careful optimized liquidity planning, we believe there may be no additional capital requirements. And now Thomas is saying, hang on, even though we've got 48 million euros, perhaps we don't even need to provide it. Seems to be laying the ground for some sort of legal thing where they're just going to present a load of arguments. And sort of the best case is that no capital requirements required, but in the worst case, if it is, they've got it ready, if that makes sense. With an additional sale of the property and leasebacks, remember, I don't know if you know this, but the Fanatec offices are going to be sold. So Fanatec are going to have to sell their offices. So for anyone who thinks that this is all just a drama thing and actually Fanatec is absolutely fine, well, it's not fine because they're going to have to sell their offices. And Thomas Jackermeier is saying that with the sale of the property and then they'll rent it back, as well as the 48 million, Fanatec would no longer be a restructuring case. What he's basically saying is that the bankruptcy laws, Starrug, would no longer be in play. So he's setting up a load of different rationales and reasons there, which is very interesting. And then here we go. Here's his demands. He wants immediate dismissal of Andreas Ruff, who's a CEO, Chief Executive Officer, Chief Restructuring Officer, and Matthias Koch, who's a Chief Financial Officer. So he wants that high level of the board just gone due to breach of duty and withdrawal of confidence. That is such an allegation, by the way. That is a very strong allegation that the Thomas Jackermeier movement are making. I mean, I said civil when I made a thumbnail that said it's civil war at Fanatec, and some people were like, oh, it's not civil war at Fanatec. I was like, no, it is civil war at Fanatec. There you go. That's what I mean by civil war. Jackermeier's crew also want the resignation of the supervisory board as well. He's saying they haven't really turned up to meetings on how to reorganize it. So Jackermeier submitted this and wanted a meeting on the same day it was submitted, which is the 6th of May, which is the same day I'm making this video. I've just flown back to HQ here and I'm making this video straight away for you because I owe it to you. And there's so many of you. You're emailing me, you're in the comments, you're in the Discord letting me know that you're just really grateful for this level of sort of, what's the word? Scrutiny on what's going on. That's the exact word that I wanted to use there. So the investor group are proposing new candidates here, including Robin Van Buren, who sounds like an insane techno DJ, but he's not, I don't think. He's an entrepreneur and plan new major investors, so maybe he's that German investor. And they want Werner Ziegmeyer, an auditor and tax consultant. This is a critical one. Thomas says, I myself do not intend to return to the company as a member of the management board. Do you believe Thomas? Yes or no? That's what he's saying. We'll take it at face value. But you also have to think, do you believe him, or does he really... A bit of a weird situation for him to give all this money and then not control how it's going to be used. I mean, I don't think he'd be happy giving it and then have the current CEO and CFO still running it and spending that money. But that's what he says. I missed out a little bit, 2 points here, by the way. I want to go back on. Wants an immediate audit of the liquidity planning. So he wants to know how much actually needs to be paid, or how close you are to insolvency and the loans, etc. So he wants to do that. Interesting, he doesn't feel like he was able. I mean, he was a CEO until a few weeks ago, basically. So presumably he was responsible. So presumably he also feels that he wasn't given the correct information at the time, which would also add an insane context to the interview I had with Thomas Jackermeier at the end of January 2024. So definitely go watch that interview again. And then the other point here, he wants the preliminary or annual financial statements 2023 to be subjected to an audit review. So again, he's not happy with what the CFO is doing. Basically, he thinks that he's not sure about the numbers that are being put out there. He may think that Thomas Jackermeier may believe Fanatec is more profitable than the financial statements are saying. That's a massive allegation because financial statements are audited. So auditors have a level of independence. They're there to scrutinize and make sure everything's okay. So that's a massive allegation. B, there's also the question, because Thomas Jackermeier was responsible for the business that has been covered by a lot of these financial statements. So is he correct in terms of there's been some insane corporate level banter going on here? Or is he just overconfident and he's like, oh, there's no way the business can be doing this badly, but the current management seem to think that it is doing this badly? That's a crazy question to think about, isn't it? Well, he says here, finally, I would like to explicitly mention that we have no indications or even knowledge that the banks or their advisors are aware of these events, and rather assume that the banks were deliberately deceived. Crazy language, this. But I'm not saying it's true or not true, I'm just saying it's crazy language by individual board members and any supporters about the actual short and long-term capital requirements. Ooh, I mean, you could reach out to the banks directly, and we're scrutinising this quite heavily because we've got techs here to scrutinise. When the executive team of Fanatec no doubt will issue their statements to the financial markets, we will scrutinise that as heavily. You know that if you're watching this channel and if you're a subscriber, that's how we roll. So they've Jackermeier Investor Group asked the banks to resolve the following at the bank meeting that was meant to take place today. They wanted their offer to be approved. I mean, pretty bold to firstly, in one paragraph, say the banks have no idea what's going on. In the second line, say, I want today the banks to approve this. Banks tend to like to read documents and sort of know what's going on. That's what banks tend to want to do. So, okay, a bit of a long shot there, maybe. And then start negotiations to extend the loans. This is a massive one. Remember, if you've been following this channel, been covering absolutely everything, the standstill agreement ends at the end of June. So less than 2 months, again, the banks have to be repaid. Thomas Jackermeier wants to extend them to 2026. Thomas Jackermeier wants to extend the loans almost to 2027. He says, if possible, December 31st, 2026, which is basically 2027. As well as reviewing the interest conditions, negotiating repayment, and financing the property. Is that just pie in the sky thinking? Like, is that like if anyone's got a mortgage and you can't pay your mortgage, you go to your bank and like, yo, bank, I want you to extend my mortgage for another 4 years and I want you to negotiate a better deal for me. Would that fly for anyone? Or your credit card or whoever? I don't know. Again, that would only seem to work if the financial statements are very different to what we have been presented, which is what Thomas Jackermeier's crew seems to be alleging. So these are massive, massive consequences for Fanatec here. And again, you really need to be impartial when you look at this, because if you look at this through any clouded scope, if you're a shareholder looking at this, you're going to be blinded because you're going to be so worried about losing all your money in your shares. If you're on the hedge fund side, you're going to be, again, blinded because you want to pick up the company for as cheap as possible and sell it on for a big profit. So for any of us that don't have a dog in this fight, we're just customers, we have the beauty of just being able to look at this impartially and actually seeing it clearly. And we can see the whole thing unfold, we're very lucky to be able to do that. And again, the worst thing for us, I guess, is that our equipment no longer works no longer gets supported, or no more software updates. It shouldn't stop working. Just to make that clear. I mean, the other day I bought a Fanatec rim that has no electronics on it. That ain't going to stop working. My NASCAR one. Thomas Jackermeier's crew says, at the latest, these measures would have secured long-term financing, and the equity ratio would be at the level that would immediately end the expensive restructuring support. With the help of the banks, the company can thus finally concentrate on daily business again. Honestly, this feels a little bit like a Hail Mary. Jackermeier then goes on, and I don't endorse this, and I'm not even going to I'm not even going to show this. I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to show too much because I think I can't show this. This is not financial advice. I think it's very irresponsible for anyone who is not financially approved by a regulator to sort of endorse this genuinely. Because Thomas Jackermeier then asked in his letter, anyone who's a potential investor, if you want to support the letter, he wants them to sign a letter that's going to say they're going to buy shares. So he really wants to get people to commit to buying shares. I've seen some crazy stuff in the last few weeks. I saw a post on Reddit. An account made it and then was deleted shortly after, saying, we need to save Fanatec. Let's spend as much money as we can on Fanatec equipment. I've seen some insane stuff. So I cannot endorse that, but just to let you know, that may be the point of the Thomas Jackermeier open letter. Now, I'm going to be following this up with Thomas Jackermeier. We're going to be, because I was sent this letter personally, it's now been disseminated more widely. And I'm also going to scrutinize what we see from the current management situation. But if you're enjoying following the story, or not necessarily enjoying is the right word, but if you are keenly following this story, please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you like the video if you think it's been of value. And please do not be afraid to share it. We're going to keep following this story, and it's absolutely insane. Right, I've just flown back to cover this. We'll see what happens, frankly, tomorrow. I'll see you next time.